letter from a viewer that says, now the only reason Reverend Larry comes on your television set is because he wants your money. And you know what? They're right. I do want your money because God wants your money. So I want you to go out and mortgage that home and sell that car and send me your money. You don't need that car.
Put it on a plate, son. You'll enjoy it more.
Couldn't enjoy it anymore, Mom. This is swell.
Welcome to Flick Flop's Cult Classics, the podcast where we dive feet first into the wild and wonderful world of films that have earned cult status. Each episode, we'll flip the script on cinema's most intriguing and unconventional films, exploring the hidden gems and eccentric creations that have captured the hearts of dedicated fans. From the bizarre to the brilliant, these are the movies that may have flopped at the box office, but soared in the cult scene. So grab your popcorn and get ready to challenge your movie taste. This is Flick Flop's Cult Classics. Sponsored by Food. Now available in hearty, savory, and sweet varieties. Never feel hungry again. Just reach for a can of food. Before we get started, please give that like button a little tap and hit subscribe if you like these reviews and want to see more. We'd really appreciate it as it will help our little channel grow. Also, check out our other shows on the Tummy Twins Media, Bonding with Mark and Andy and Tangent Station with Kevin and Willis. We hope to launch a couple more shows this year and hope that you'll stick around for more. This week, we discuss Repo Man, the 1984 sci-fi punk film starring Emilio Estevez, or Estevez, however you say that, and Harry Dean Stanton. In the movie, Estevez plays a slacker punk rocker named Otto, who finds himself working as a repo agent. When a Chevy Malibu with questionable contents in the trunk becomes a $20,000 job, Otto embarks on a quest to find the car. Are we card-carrying compatriots of this cult classic? Find out in this episode of Flick Flops Cult Classics.
Repo Man, Gary.
Repo Man.
Let's jump into something real quick. Rotten Tomatoes, Gary.
Right,
Do you have any idea what
quick?
Do you have any ideas what the numbers are in this film?
I'm actually looking right at them. So
yeah.
Yes, I do.
Surprisingly, I say that 98 with the critics.
Yeah.
78 with the audience.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that is. I mean, the critics have this almost perfect.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think it's an almost perfect film, but 98 is high. The budget for this thing was $1.5 million. It only made $3.7 million. I do not have it adjusted for inflation number on this one. So I'm sure it didn't play in a lot of theaters, and that's why it's become a cult classic.
Yeah.
My side note, my only recognition or recollection with this film is Andy Leahy. Because
and that's who told me to watch it. Really,
and I don't know if he even liked the film, but the soundtrack was all punk rock, and
right.
A friend of ours was a big punk.
Shout out to Andy Leahy.
Written and directed by Alex Cox. Alex Cox, from what I could gather, really lived in the independent cult film world. I'd say probably the biggest thing he did outside of this was Sid and Nancy.
Right.
I do not have a long list of his films because I don't. Again, I think the majority of the I'd say 4 of the 5 people that actually watch this podcast won't dig deep into his catalog. So
he's got a screenwriting credit for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, I'm sure there's stuff on here that people like. You already mentioned Sid and Nancy.
Yeah. I mean, yes, we call our show Cult Classics, but I don't swim in that lake very often,
Right.
I mean, to me, a cult classic is one that I think is great and everybody else thinks sucks.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a true cult, but anyway, Alex Cox, I'm sure has done some great work. Sid and Nancy would be the thing of note that you would know.
And that's probably the other. Well, I think I did see Fear and Loathing, but but I saw Sid and Nancy also. So
right, probably because of Leahy too.
I believe so.
This is our Andy Leahy tribute show.
Let's get him on the horn.
Interesting. Produced by Michael Nesmith from the Monkees, and of course for us Tapeheads fame.
Yeah.
Michael Nesmith apparently is a pretty weird dude. After he left the Monkees and wore his little beanie all the time, he made some interesting films. I did. So my notes. Let's go. What do I got written? I'm trying to scan through my notes. They're out of order a little bit. I'll read a few things I've got. Then you'll kind of get the feel for where I'm going with this film. Despite a troubled initial release due to universal skepticism towards the film's commercial viability, Repo Man received widespread acclaim and was deemed by critics, Gary, to be one of the best films of 1984.
Yeah.
Now,
I guess they missed Cloak and Dagger. No, I'm just kidding.
let me just go down. I made a short list of other films that were released in 1984. And you tell me if you think this is better than any of the ones I list. Now, there are a few red herrings in there that you might go, yeah, it was better than that. But for the most part, we're going to start off. All these films were released the same year as this film, and this one was considered one of the best of 1984.
Okay.
Ghostbusters, Beverly Hills Cop, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, The Karate Kid, Footloose, Romancing the Stone, Against All Odds, This is Spinal Tap, 16 Candles, The Natural, Rhinestone, which, by the way, I freaking love. Bachelor Party, Purple Rain, Cloak and Dagger, Starman, Runaway, starring Tom Selleck and Gene Simmons, A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Terminator, Amadeus, which was an Oscar-winning film, Judd.
This is all 1984.
All 1984.
Judd.
And finally, Red Dawn. Avenge me!
Dude, that list of movies. Was there a better time in theater in movies?
Well, no, but harkening back to this was considered one of the best of that year.
Yeah.
Now, granted, a lot of these are very commercial films. I understand that. And again, I guess this is where opinions come into play that I wouldn't say this is one of the best of that year.
Yeah, so we could start talking about the movie and get into all that.
Hold on, let me finish up. So in 2008, Gary, in modern times, in 2008, this film was voted by a group of Los Angeles Times writers and editors as the 8th best film set in Los Angeles in the last 25 years. Entertainment Weekly ranked the film 7th on their list of top 50 cult films. Now that may be a more accurate, sense of the film, because they did put cult films. When you do that vast stroke of best films of all of a whole year, and it's like, I don't know, you're compared against Oscar-winning films. Like, I'm not trying to crap on them. I'm just saying. Yeah. And I have Roger Ebert. I have a quote, Gary. Roger Ebert. I saw Repo Man near the end of a busy stretch on the movie beat. 3 days during which I saw more relentlessly bad movies than during any comparable period of memory. Most of those bad movies were so cynically constructed out of formula ideas and commercial ingredients that watching them was an ordeal. Repo Man comes out of left field, has no big stars, didn't cost much, takes chances, dares to be unconventional, is funny, and works. There's a lesson here. That was Roger Ebert in January of 1984. He gave it a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Now, referring back to another critic that I've used before, David Nussar.
Okay.
Real Film Reviews from Rotten Tomatoes. His quote is, "This movie, more often than not, just comes off as strange for strangeness' sake." And I agree with that.
Yeah.
This movie, to me, felt like he was just trying to be weird, trying to be out left field. Left field, sorry. I was pointing the wrong direction. I'm backwards on my screen, Gary. I'm not Ira Joe Fisher. Yes.
Dude, okay. Well, we'll talk about that after the show, but that's funny that you bring that up.
So, I have just a couple of notes. I really do, because I tried to step away from being a dick watching this film. I tried to step away and just really watch the film. One of the things I thought was very, very funny in this movie, and I give kudos to whoever idea this was. And let me, I got to change my background picture, Gary. So let me, while we're talking here, let me see if I can do this while we are talking. This was just something that was, it took me a minute. And when I first saw it, I'm like, wait a minute. So can you see the picture behind me?
Kind of.
Let me move here. Do you see the can?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's through the film, though.
It just says food.
Yeah. So, okay.
Dude.
So speaking of that,
That became an ongoing like Easter egg thing. I was like, what else do they got? And I
so
thought this was brilliant because it's to me it's like a little bit of a commentary on
yes, consumerism.
society.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was like,
Yeah.
that I did enjoy.
And me too. In fact, that's what I was going to say was there's a lot at play in this movie. And there is a lot of weird for weirdness sake.
Yes.
So I totally agree with that. But I do feel like, and I'm trying to judge it from that time period. I can understand where Roger Ebert's coming from in a sense. This movie is so much different than probably anything else that was out that year.
Absolutely.
It definitely has an underlying like message kind of throughout. And I do think it's a kind of a thing on consumerism. There's a lot of, they go and buy drinks and it's like,
It just says drink.
or drink. And when they're stocking the shelves at the beginning, I mean, the whole background of,
Peaches.
But do you remember when generic products first came out and they were like that?
Dude, I was explaining this to somebody. I was like,
Yeah.
this was the real time.
Yeah.
That
Not a lot of people know that. Now, there wasn't a can of tin with that said food on it. That was like overplaying the whole thing. And I think that was sort of the part of the commentary to it. But there definitely was, you'd go and get cheese and it would be like cheese,
Dude, I remember buying literally like because my brother was old to drink beer then, and they were white cans that just said beer.
Yeah.
It didn't say anything. I mean, it might have had the ingredients, but it just said beer. And what another thing is, this was made during the Reagan's rise of fame and success as a president, or not lack of, however you looked at Reagan. I'm not here to make a political statement, but a lot of people who didn't like the 80s because of all their what they call it, the decade of greed.
Yeah.
And I think if you step away from this film and remove yourself from watching how weird it is, there's an underlying, like you're saying, there's an underlying tone to consumerism. And if we probably did a longer study on this film and weren't kind of just doing this off the cuff more or less, we could probably really find that message. But I did find those types of things interesting. And again,
those were the only things that kept me interested, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the film doesn't make a lot of sense. It's kind of dumb.
You don't really know where it's going to go. Really,
well, it's almost like the back of the
great, actually, but
the back of the car, the trunk is kind of like the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. You never really know what's in it, but it's something pretty bad.
Yeah.
I mean, the notes I have left are, the clothes. Like, what a snapshot of time. If you want somebody to explain, like, what was 1984 like? Watch Repo Man.
It definitely for the punk scene, because I feel like it only showed a few clips of that kind of thing, but I feel like that captured some of that in there.
And that's awesome to go back and watch. And I mean, I made a note of the first car that he has, that Harry Dean Stanton has in Repo. I wrote, what is that, a Pontiac like crap? Because the cars were so hideous in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then again, I have to make a comment. I mean, I sound like a broken record, but I just don't think Harry Dean Stanton is a good actor.
I will say he was better in this than he was in Escape from New York.
Tell me I'm wrong. I mean, I'd be happy to admit I'm wrong. I don't have anything against Harry Dean Stanton, but I'm watching this movie and I was like, he just looks like he's like just fumbling his way through this.
Maybe he was.
I thought Estevez was great.
By the way, another tie to, but you mentioned tape heads before, so
I know where you're going.
Okay, so
do it.
So Cy Richardson again is in this, and as I love to bring up that dude because he's the bartender from Tape Heads, and I love seeing him and stuff because it always reminds me of Tape Heads, which I'm now thinking that we should have done Tape Heads as a cult classic because I'm definitely a member of that cult.
Absolutely, yeah.
So to take it back to the beginning real quick, I mentioned this before we started. I had only seen this movie once. It wasn't in 84. It was many years after. Yeah. Could have been early 90s, late 80s for sure. And it was at the prodding of a friend of ours. And I watched it, and I remember back then watching it and thinking, yeah, this seems like a movie that Leahy would like. And I just remember thinking it was okay. It didn't really land with me back then. And
Right,
watching it
exactly.
this time, I felt like when it first started, I was like the first maybe 15 minutes or so, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I feel like watching all of this.
You're ready to tap out.
I was, but then it picks up, and then there's a lot like the underlying kind of stuff that they throw in there, where they're obviously making statements about different things here and there. Kept me interested enough to watch the whole thing. I'm not going to dunk on this movie. I don't think it's worthy of the 98% that critics gave it. But
I don't either.
But I could see where it could be, where in a certain class of films, this could be, this would be considered a good movie to people. It's just not for me.
Yeah, this could be. I could see this being like Tape Heads is to us, to some other people watching this, going, yeah. The music, the soundtrack is pretty. It's punk.
Yeah.
I think the one takeaway I always had from this wasn't this where we heard the line, subsequently Pablo Picasso was never called an asshole.
That was in one of the songs. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it stuck with me. And again, I'll reiterate that I thought Estevez really was great in this movie. And maybe it's just a showcase of how good of an actor he really is, because I totally bought his character. I did not buy Stanton's character. I didn't buy half of the actors. I was like, these people aren't that good. But I thought he was really good.
He's from the Brat Pack,
Yeah.
So anyway, Andy, where do you stand, buddy? Are you a member of the cult?
No. I'll probably never watch this movie again in my life unless somebody is at my house and wants to watch it, and I'll be like, "You sure you don't want to watch anything else?" Anything?
I think that is officially the first time I think we've agreed that we are just not members of this cult.
Not members, not members, Gary.
Got a little Bob Dole hand and a Clinton voice.
Not a member, Gary.
That's right, mate.
Yeah, it's like funny. I don't want to knock and say it's a bad film, because you got to take it for what it is.
Yeah.
So it just isn't for me. So let's leave it at that. It's not for me, and it's nothing. I have no desire to ever see this again, because as I was rewatching it, I'm like, oh, I think I remember why I haven't seen this in the past 37 years.
Yeah.
Because I didn't care for it then.
I think this was your pick, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So I do a lot of bad things, Gary. I make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
I've got exes. They'll tell you I make big mistakes. But anyway, if you love this film, good on you, man. Good to you. Gary and I have films that we love that I'm sure people would think we are insane or high, and we're neither. It's just certain things hit right, man.
Yeah, and we welcome your comments in the section.
Yeah.
Let us know anything that we missed, and let us know if you like the movie. I mean,
sell us on it. Tell us what we missed. Maybe we can be flipped or flopped, whatever. What's the name of this show?
I don't know, but I think you're drunk.
It's no, I'm just drinking Gatorade, Gary. I swear to God. It's drunk uncle. Let's tell you something, Gary.
Nice. All right, everybody, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you thought of Repo Man if you've seen it. Was it? Are you in the 98%? Like the critics on Rotten Tomatoes? We'd like to know that. And catch us next time on another episode of Flick Flops.
Yeah, go to Hawaii.
This has been a Touch of Madness production, brought to you by the creative minds at Tommy Twins Media.